In order to create a flash animation splash screen with rollover buttons that click through to other websites or parts of a website, you will require a set of images to work with. One of them needs to be a large background image, like this one that I'm pointing to over here, which will form the backdrop for your animation. You will then need at least two other images. The first will be a plain, either color or black and white in my case, image, much smaller, about 150 by 150 or smaller. And the second will be some kind of enhancement of that same image, a duplicate version in sepia or black and white. In my case, I've added text to that image. You can, of course, have another set of dual images and so on. So you could have, for example, 3 different buttons, but you should ensure that there are 2 versions of each image that you're going to use as a button. One that is full color or black and white, and the other that is sepia or black and white. Some kind of difference in order for the rollover to work. Once you have your images in the correct size and shape, you then open Adobe Flash CC. Under the Create New menu list, choose ActionScript 3.0. When you do this, you will see a white canvas block appear before you. In the right-hand Properties drop-down menu, select the size and ensure that it is the same as the image that you're going to be using. In my case, it is 1024 by 726. Okay, and that has changed that canvas slightly. You can make it to center stage. You can also allow it to fit in your window so that you're easily able to work with it. Once you have that available, you now need to import your images into the library. You can find the library bar here in the right hand corner next to Properties, and at the moment, as you can see, it is completely empty. Go to File, Import, Import to Library. It's very important that you use the Import to Library function and not Import to Stage. When you do that, it is then important that you import all of the images that you're going to use. So I've created a folder, and I'm going to select all of the images within the folder and click Open. You'll now see that those images appear in the right-hand library section. All right. Select the image that is going to form your background. In my case, it's the one called War. Drag it and drop it onto what we call the stage. Now you will need to align it with the stage, and you do this using the Align function, which is next to the Properties bar. It is the third button from the top. Click Align. Make sure that this particular option, Align to Stage, is ticked, and then choose Align to the left edge and Align to top in the buttons. This will make sure that that particular image is fully aligned to the stage, the canvas underneath. Notice that your layer is called Layer 1. Double click on it and rename it Background. You now have a background image fully aligned to the canvas that will form the backdrop for your animation. You can now lock this layer using the padlock button underneath on the layer here. Okay, next you will insert a new layer. That's at the bottom left hand corner. Choose Insert Layer, and this we're going to make into a title. So we're going to call this layer Title, and we're going to choose from the right hand toolbar, we're going to choose the Text tool, and we're going to draw a text option there. So I'm just going to call Mine in the Eyes of a Child, something along those lines. Doesn't really matter at this stage as we are playing around with the animation function. Again, you can use the Properties function to change the way that it looks. In my case, maybe I would like to make that orange. I'm going to make it slightly smaller, make it around 50 in terms of that spacing. If I want to move that title around, I click on the Selection tool, and I can then move the title where I would like it. In this case, I'm not really liking the way that it's looking, so I'm going to choose a filter. I'm going to use a drop shadow filter just to make it clearer, and as you can see, it changes the look and feel of the text to make it clearer and to stand out from that background image. If I want to go back to the text tool, I can double click at any point and select it, and I can then change the way that it looks. So maybe I don't quite like that version of the orange, but I'd like a darker version, and in this case, yes, I think I will do that. So now we have a background image and we have a title. We can then lock both of those layers, and now we can move on to the main part of this tutorial, which is creating the interactive buttons. Again, add another layer and rename this layer Buttons. Now go to your library, and whichever is the version of the button that you would like people to see when they first arrive on your website, choose that particular image and again drag it onto your canvas or stage. Alright, so now you can see a smaller image that's going to be used as our button. You may then import as many of these images as you like onto the canvas just by dragging and dropping. But we're going to be working with this one over here. Now, it's important to make this image into a symbol. To do this, make sure that you have selected the image. You can see that it is ringed in blue. Go to the top, click Modify, and then go down to Convert to Symbol. You can also use the shortcut F8 if you prefer. This will then open a dialog box. Make sure that the type is button and not movie clip or graphic, or you're going to have problems later on in this tutorial. So we're sure that it's a button. You can rename it. I'm going to keep it as symbol 1, and you're just going to click OK. If it has converted it successfully, you will see a round circle in the middle of your button image, and that now tells you that that has become a symbol. Now what we want to do is we want to create an animation where when the person, the user visiting your site, visits it and rolls their mouse over it, it changes the image to a different version of that same image. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and double click on the image itself. You will notice that this changes. The background image becomes grayed out, your timeline changes, and suddenly it just says layer 1. Don't panic, that's exactly what it should be doing. You are now in the process of editing and animating the particular button. The first thing that you need to do is look at the timeline version, and you will see that you have an up, an over, a down, and a hit section. At the moment, the only one that has anything on it is the up section. We're now going to create what is called a keyframe, and we're going to allow the image to swap between two versions of itself in order to create the rollover that we see. Alright, so the first thing you need to do is you go to Insert, you go to Timeline, and you click Keyframe. When you do that, you will notice that a dot appears under the over, and the red play area has now shifted over to over. This means that there are two versions of that particular image. Now you go to Properties, you click on Swap, and you choose the other version of the image, the one that you want to swap to. In my case, it is a sepia version of that image with the text on it that says Part 1. I then click OK. You'll see that the image has changed to that sepia version of itself. To check that in fact this rollover is working, just move from up to over, and you should see what the user will see when they move from one to the other. At this point now, you want to go back to your overall timeline, and you do that by clicking on the top left hand corner onto scene 1. Okay, so now we have a version of this particular flash animation that allows the rollover. If you would like to test it at this point, go up to Control, click Test, and a dialog box will open which will allow you, as you can see, to test whether the rollover is working. And all you're looking for is that action there, that you can see a change from the one version of the image to the other. Of course, that's not sufficient, because what we do want is we want for the user to be able to click on that image and to be taken to another site or part of the site that we are creating. Now, in order to do that, we now need to create another layer, and this layer is going to be called Actions. Okay, so we have an actions layer and we have a button layer, neither of which are locked. Please don't lock them at this stage. And we now want to create the action of clicking on the particular image that then takes you to the website or part of the website. Select the image that you want this function to be related to. So in my case, I only have one button, so I'm going to click that button. I'm going to make sure that the blue outline appears, and I'm then going to go to Window and to Actions, which is going to open this dialog box that I see in front of me. At this point then, there's nothing available there. There's no coding that's been entered. There's no command available for that particular button, and we're going to add that command. What's nice about Flash is that it provides a series of code functions that have already been coded for you, and you don't need to do much in order to get it to work. So up in the top right hand corner next to the question mark, you're going to click the greater than and less than sign, or the open tag symbol, which is going to take you to code snippets. And you're then going to click on Action Script, Actions, and click to go to Web Page. Right. It's going to tell you that the selected symbol requires what is called an instance name. In this case, Flash is going to create one for you, so you don't need to worry about that, and you can just click OK. You'll notice immediately that some code appears in the window which was previously blank. You want to delete the instructions, that's all the grayed out text between the slashes, and make it as neat as possible. Code should always be very neat. You can also then either select the particular URL and copy and paste in another URL from a different site, or, as I'm going to do, merely edit it and change where it's going to redirect to. So I'm going to put it to Google. Do not change any other aspects of the code, and make sure that the inverted commas are on both sides of that URL. Otherwise, the button will not work. At this point then, you can close your Actions tab and your code snippets, and you can now check whether in fact this works. So we do as we did before. We go to Control, we go to Test, we wait for it to export. The rollover still works, and if we click on it, it's going to open your browser and go to whichever website you've redirected it for. You can do exactly the same for each other button that you want to create. So if you wanted 3 different buttons in a row over here, or 5 different buttons, or however many you wanted, you can create those different versions. And that's how to create a simple Flash animation that allows you to roll over a button and click on it to go to a different website.